Hey guys, welcome back to another video on a different branch of feminism. This one is liberal feminism. Liberal feminism is going to be probably the branch of feminist thought that is going to be most familiar to you. I think it's probably the one that is most mainstream. If we think feminism and we think about women should be treated the same as men, liberal feminism is kind of what that basically is. It's going to be our first theory that is not a theory of gender difference, but a theory of gender inequality. So it answers that question, that first feminist question of where are the women, not by saying, well, in a different position than men. It answers it by saying, well, they're in an unequal position compared to men. Their experience is inferior in any particular facet of society that we're looking at, whether it's the family, the economy, politics, just being out in a social situation. They would say in any aspect of it, we will see women occupying a different position than men, and it will be an inferior position. And they will say, even though our society tells us it's because there are these essential differences between women and men, that's not true, that women and men are more similar than they are different, and that gender is a social construction. Basically, that we build up a bunch of ideas based on the biological difference of sex. And they're ideas that don't really hold water. That women and men are a lot more similar than different, and it's just our society treats them differently. Okay. I think that's all I want to say in terms of our introduction. So let me get into just a little bit more of an elaboration of what we've said up to now. So the liberal, first of all, this is worth noting. The liberal doesn't mean, it shouldn't be thought of in terms of liberal versus conservative. The liberal here is something that, in general, all liberals and conservatives would agree on, which is Lockean liberalism, way back with John Locke, the idea that we all are born into a state of nature in which we have the right to life, liberty, our own property, and that society can come along and deprive us of that only through the social contract. So liberal feminists say, look, I don't know if John Locke said this just about men, but this really should be about all people. Women should have exactly the same rights and opportunities that men have. And they say the reason that we see unequal outcomes is because society is not set up based on that Enlightenment idea of equality and freedom. So they say that, following Charlotte Perkins Gilman, in fact, they say, look, gender is a social construction that is at the heart of our society. Culture is built based on this idea of men and women being different. And based on that, we end up with a system of attitudes, our culture, sexist culture, and practices, social structure that doesn't allow women to participate in the same ways. So jobs that are considered to be more for men than for women, or vice versa. That based on this idea of gender, we end up creating an entire system that has unequal outcomes. The details of that system. In terms of culture, it's basically sexist attitudes. The idea that women and men are essentially different, and that women are more fitted for certain private sphere, appearance-oriented tasks in the world, and men are more not oriented toward, but it is more appropriate for men to be in leadership positions or positions of power. So that's you guys know what sexist culture it means. With social structure, they talk about, first of all, a gendered division of labor. So we believe that certain jobs are more for men and other jobs are more for women. And the result of that ends up being that men end up, the way those jobs are rewarded is that men's income is higher. To the extent that we have this gender division of labor, it's not equally rewarded. We also have the idea of public and private spheres. So that's another structural issue. And in those public and private spheres, even though we say that nowadays in the 21st century that women have as much right to be in the economy working as men do, we still think of the private sphere as more of a women's place. So in a family, if somebody in a heterosexual marriage, if somebody is going to take off time for work, we still identify that as being a woman's choice, not so much a men's choice. It's not considered equally by our society, and we have a lot more women dropping out of the workforce for a period of time than we have men. And thus, because of that aspect of structure, we end up with inequality. And I think that might be just about all that I need. Oh, except for the solution. So liberal feminism says, all right, so look, this is what we basically got. We've got a society that is set up based on gender, kind of like Charlotte Perkins Gilman said. Gender is this organizing principle that doesn't just affect what people can do, it also affects the rewards that people can get. A man in a patriarchal society is able to access more rewards than a woman is because of that stuff that we talked about before about tracking into a gender division of labor where men's work is more highly paid, expecting women to jump out of that to tend to the private sphere. And also, I guess we should also say that even within a particular career path, because of sexist attitudes, the idea that women are less fit for leadership, men have easier access to the higher echelons of any particular career. Sorry, all of this is horrible. But so what the liberal feminists say is, we got to do away with this. This can't be the basis of our society. If something is not based in reason, because remember they're Lockean going back to the Enlightenment, if it's not based in reason and it's ending up with unequal rewards for people, you got to scrap it. And that's it. That's liberal feminism for you. Again, I think it's probably the type of feminism that we're most used to thinking in terms of. At least for me, this is when I think of feminism, I think of people saying, well, gender is a social construction. It leads to inequality, and therefore we need to change that social construction of gender. Yeah, that's it. In the next video, we will come back to another theory of gender inequality. It's going to be rational choice. That is going to the one flaw. And I am a liberal feminist, so like I say this not. I don't say this like jeeringly about, oh, I mean, this is my camp that I'm criticizing. There is, I don't think, quite enough acknowledgement of, like I talked about, that hopping in and out of the occupations that women are more expected to do. Just the way that I said that kind of suggests that women are being pushed and pulled by social forces rather than making the best decision for themselves, given the fact that they live in a sexist society. Liberal feminism, I don't want to say it doesn't do that, because any particular liberal feminist, myself included, absolutely can. But if we're thinking about liberal feminism in a narrowly defined way and in terms of one branch, that's not an emphasis for it. Rational choice feminist theory, which is our next theory of inequality, is going to look more at a woman making the best choices she can given the fact that she lives in a sexist society. So we'll look at that as kind of a, you don't have to pick one of these. I've got like 4 of them that I really like. But as something that works pretty well with liberal feminism. So anyway, we'll cover rational choice in the next video.